It's a story that will be a learning for everyone. A story that shows how caste is weaponized and used to create a Hinduphobic narrative, and it stretches all the way from California to Mumbai. From the caste discrimination lawsuit filed against two Cisco engineers in California to the suicide of a Dalit scholar in IIT Bombay. Both were painted as Brahmanical oppression and a suppression of lower castes and minorities by an anti-Dalit, anti-Muslim Hindu society. The sad reality, though, is that this entire narrative was based on tenuous, fact-free grounds and took very little time to fall apart. First, let's tell you about what happened in California. The Civil Rights Department there voluntarily dismissed its 3-year-old case where two Brahmin engineers were accused of caste discrimination. Sundar Iyer and Ramana Kompella were accused in the department's lawsuit of harassing an employee because he is a Dalit. What is more significant is that this case was then used to carry out a vicious Hinduphobic campaign where an entire community was called casteist, Brahmanical, regressive. Never mind the fact that these two so-called upper caste oppressors were the very people who actively recruited the Dalit complainant, even gave him perks and a generous salary package. The Hindu American Foundation then challenged the lawsuit. They said that the case falsely paints the picture that Hinduism mandates caste discrimination. Now, with the case being dismissed, they have welcomed the decision as a slap on the face of a Hinduphobic campaign. Now let's talk about something closer home. A case in IIT Bombay, where a young scholar Darshan Solanki committed suicide by jumping off the 7th floor of his hostel building on the 12th of February this year. This case also was quickly picked up by the left and branded one of caste oppression. The so-called rights groups highlighted Darshan's Dalit caste to say that that was the reason that he was harassed and driven to suicide. Unfortunately for the spin doctors, on the 3rd of March, the police recovered a suicide note where Darshan had written, "Arman has killed me." Subsequently, SIT arrested a boy named Arman Iqbal Khatri, Darshan's batchmate. The remand note in the case has now revealed that Arman Iqbal Khatri had threatened Darshan for making a comment about his religion. Arman also brandished a cutter at Darshan and said, "Main tujhe chhodunga nahi." Scared, Darshan was driven to suicide. The question then is, why from Bombay to California, these cases were picked up, colored in a caste fashion, made into cases of caste harassment in order to spin this narrative.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
All right, joining us on the debate is Suhag Shukla, Executive Director of the Hindu American Foundation, Rahul Ishwar, activist, Anirban Banerjee, political analyst, Ashok Bharti, Chairman of the National Confederation of Dalit and Adivasi Organizations. But my first question is to political analyst Vivek Srivastava. Mr. Srivastava, I want to start by quoting to you from what is the statement, the declaration made by one of the accused, Sundar Iyer. The gentleman says, "The department's allegations are premised on the notion that I am adherent of the highest ranking social caste, Brahmin, and that I actively supported an advanced caste hierarchy at Cisco, which resulted in inferior terms and conditions of employment for Doe," which is the complainant, John Doe. "This is categorically and demonstrably false. I have publicly stated on my personal webpage for almost 20 years, I do not practice organized religion, let alone Hinduism or Brahminism. I have publicly admonished the Indian caste system for over a decade, including in my short story from a writing class at Stanford." Now imagine this man who has publicly written against the caste system was then accused of being casteist. Why? Because he is a Brahmin. Isn't this a blatantly false and Hinduphobic case and accusation? And for what?
No, absolutely. Absolutely not. This is not a Hinduphobic case at all. And I mean, once you are caught and inquiries start against you, you start justifying because you know that your career is going to be jeopardized now. That is what happens. We have a very strong SC/ST, law over here in our nation because, yes, I mean, there have been problems for centuries and we have to recognize it. I mean, if I'm talking of Dalit problems or OBC problems, that doesn't make me Hinduphobic. That is why you are giving reservation. That is why you got the Mandal Commission. So, I mean, the problem is there. The problem, I mean, if you go to matrimonial columns of the newspapers and even of these new, marriage portals, I mean, even today people are marrying in the similar castes. Brahmin matches,
can we stick
Rajput
to
matches,
the
Baniya
present
matches,
case, sir? I don't want to get into matrimonial ads because, frankly, I have not studied that subject and do not have any facts to furnish there. But on the very limited case that I'm talking about, you are saying that this gentleman called Sundar Iyer in 2012 wrote an anti-caste essay because he knew in 2023 he would be accused of being casteist, and he would use that essay as his defense because, in your words, he was caught out. So he wrote this essay in 2012 because he is also preemptive in addition to being casteist.
Yes. See, writing an essay doesn't guarantee anything, and writing an essay doesn't mean anything. Okay, I mean, it could have been one particular hatred because of something against John that started off. But again, I do not know. Cisco is trying to, sort of save its own reputation, and that is what it's a company, and it doesn't want people to feel that it is a company where racialism of one kind or casteism of one kind is being followed. It is understandable. It's a corporate.
But it is the Civil Rights Department which has dropped the case because it is patently false and weak. It has no legs to stand on.
Okay, see. Okay, I mean, maybe a particular case, yes, it dropped off, maybe because there was not enough evidence, or maybe even if the case could have been maybe not on a strong footing, that's a different issue. However, there is a problem of casteism, there is a problem of discrimination. When Swami Prasad Maurya raised the issue, we debated on your channel, everybody was up in garbs about this Dalit issue over here. So the problem exists, Padmaja, and you have to acknowledge it.
Again, I'm requesting you, let's not go off on tangents into Shadi.com and Swami Prasad Maurya. Let's stick to the present case. And talking about the facts of the case, let me ask you, Suhag Shukla, hold on, sir. We cannot have a free-ranging, pointless debate. So let me talk about the present case. Suhag Shukla, two arguments. One, it is only the case against two individuals that has been dropped. The department is still going to carry out the case against Cisco. So why are you celebrating prematurely?
I don't think it's a matter of celebrating prematurely. I think that these two individuals had their names dragged through the mud when the state knew it did not have the evidence to file its claim. And let's talk about the evidence of the claim. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, of course, what Sundar Iyer wrote 20 years ago is relevant, but I think his actions speak louder than his words. He was a classmate of John Doe, actively recruited him. In fact, in that recruitment process, Sundar Iyer had millions of dollars of stock equity that he got because this was his startup within Cisco. He relinquished his ownership in order to bring together the best team. So when John Doe was hired, he was hired with a very generous stock grant package in the several millions of dollars. Now, the state has painted a picture of a division at Cisco where Indians are running amok, and there's some sort of hierarchical system of only Indians, but that's not factually correct. This was a very diverse department with people of all ethnicities and races. More importantly, this division had 3 head positions, one of which was held by someone else who self-identifies as Dalit. Not only that, but the other 2 head positions at different points in time before John Doe filed his claim had been offered to this other individual who's self-described or self-identified Dalit. So if there are other people of the scheduled caste background who are succeeding in here, if John Doe himself is a demonstration of success here in this country, as well as the fact that a classmate of his, they were classmates at IIT, actively recruits him, we need to dig into the facts. Why did the state leave these key facts out of its filing? Moreover, they're trying to do something. We need to really be careful of keeping the Indian context different and separate from the American context. Our legal systems are very different. Our system does not presuppose someone as a victim, nor does it presuppose anyone as a victimizer. Indian law is a little bit different in that sense. So in this law, they could have filed their case under national origin, which is where allegations of caste discrimination are already prohibited, because national origin includes things like ancestry, descent, birthplace, family background, all of those things.
Okay.
But what they chose to do is try to conflate it with religion, and then started defining Hinduism as being an inherently discriminatory religion. The state cannot meddle in defining religious doctrine. That is against the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
All right, I will come to that about how a religion is being painted a certain way in just a bit. But again, to take one fact of this case to Ashok Bharti. Mr. Bharti, and this may sound like a very unpopular thing to say, but at least in case of Cisco, it seems that caste has been used as an excuse. Caste bias has been used as an excuse. Because as Suhag Shukla has just mentioned, वहां पर बाकी लोग हैं जो कि दलित हैं, उनको प्रमोशन मिला. यहां पर एक आदमी था, जॉन डो, जिसको क्योंकि प्रमोशन नहीं मिला, he used his caste as an excuse to talk about discrimination. Isn't that in itself very, very wrong and against the very tenets of law and our constitution?
Well, there are two issues, I suppose, that we should be talking and discussing about. That one case is of an individual, and the second issue is of the caste discrimination. I guess the state after state in US are clearly taking the idea of discrimination forward, and I suppose we must congratulate the United States for making caste discrimination as unlawful. It is really a great work that they have done. Now, coming to the case, this individual case does not matter in systemic discrimination. So therefore, making, hill out of the mold doesn't serve any purpose. One individual case may fall through, but the court has clearly mentioned that the judiciary the committee should probe whether caste discrimination happened in Cisco. So this is the fact. So one case does not matter at all in this case.
Sir, very respectfully,
therefore,
can I interrupt you for 10 seconds to ask?
In US just let me.
So when you said that systemic discrimination takes place, and you congratulated the United States, can you quote me some examples of systemic caste discrimination?
Let me finish my argument and then you can tell me.
Okay, go on.
Let me finish my argument, then you can come, okay? Because I don't know that what you said, because so I suppose that when the caste discrimination is a reality in US society.
How?
And you know that in India, we know, and even in US, we know, lots of racial discrimination cases fall through.
But sir, you are making a sweeping statement.
The issue
based on what fact? You said that there is systemic discrimination. You said caste discrimination is a reality. How? Name me a case where there has been a conviction for caste discrimination in the United States. Because otherwise, a person is presumed casteist purely because of his or her religion. You're a Hindu, you must be casteist. You must hate Dalits. How? How are you making these statements?
No, I don't think that is the case. Mr. Padmaja ji, I don't think this is the case. There is no issue of religion. It is between the caste and caste. So don't bring the religion and don't put the political agenda in this debate.
But sir, how are you assuming that these two people are casteist just because they are Brahmins? You said it's a reality that these two are Brahmins, so they must be casteist. How did you make this presumption?
The one person and another person both belong to the same religion. So they have the caste differentiation.
Yes, but
There is a
how are
caste
you
discrimination,
assuming
not religious
that they will
discrimination in this case.
discriminate based on their caste? Just because they are Brahmins, they will discriminate against the Dalit.
Padmaja, I am not assuming this is the reality. I am not assuming.
What is
It is
reality?
the reality. That's why California State Assembly considering making the caste discrimination unlawful.
How are you saying it's a reality? Based on what are you saying it's a reality?
This is highly offensive.
What is the example you have to show that this is a reality? That a person is a Brahmin, he must hate Dalits. How do you know?
Look at the debates in you look at the debate in the US society.
There are
Look at
plenty
the
of
debates
debates
in
which
the
are
US
saying that this is a
society,
rubbish
society.
debate.
Sir, where, sir?
If you want to discuss,
That's highly offensive
we are not,
and unfortunate.
Well, you can call it rubbish. I don't mind. This is a debate. I don't mind.
Okay.
Caste
I really don't know.
is very offensive.
I really don't know what to say to that, Rahul Ishwar. It is a reality.
Just two submissions.
Because it is. And you cannot combat it. It is a reality.
Padmaja ji, as a Brahmin, as a Hindu, as a Indian, as a human, it deeply offends me when somebody simply blames an entire community in a very broad way without any data, any statistics, any empirical evidence. You are painting the entire Brahmin community and Hindu community as casteist. So this is also a kind of clever discrimination. This is also institutional discrimination. Sir, let me have my say. Let me have my say. And please remember, Brahmin phobia has become very fashionable. Hinduphobia has become very fashionable in our society. Brahmin phobia is branded liberal. Hinduphobia is branded progressive. This is the unfortunate situation we are living in. Whereas Brahmin phobia is branded liberal and Hinduphobia is branded progressive. And Vivek ji, I have equal voice like yours. I can also disrupt when you speak, but I have the decency to hear your point of view. Please give me my 2
Okay, Vivek Srivastava, please give him 30 seconds. Let Rahul Ishwar make his point. I will come back to you and to Mr. Bharti. Finish your 30 seconds, Rahul Ishwar. Yes.
That's Padmaja ji, this is the precise reason why the opposite side is creating noise, because they don't have arguments. So if you don't have arguments, raise your voice is the strategy. Brahmin phobia has become liberal. Hinduphobia has become progressive. This is the sad state of affairs in India, and by some left liberal or extreme far left liberal people wanting to defame, denigrate Hindu community, Brahmin Samaj, which is a micro minority, Indians as such, and this will have far-reaching implications. See, look at the tonality of what they are saying.
Yeah.
Individual cases doesn't matter, data doesn't matter, statistics doesn't matter, empirical data doesn't matter. It is widely prevalent. What is the source of their assertion?
It is widely believed.
Nothing.
The only rebuttal to that is it is widely believed. There is a debate by who? Who is having this debate? What are the facts that they are channeling? What are the cases that they have to cite? As opposed to this case, Mr. Bharti, and I'm going to ask you on specifics. You said there is a belief that a man is a Brahmin, hence he must discriminate. Now let me quote to you what happened to Sundar Iyer, this casteist man. Sir, please hear my facts. 30 seconds, I request your silence. What does Sundar Iyer say? Under oath, he says in quote, I have never retaliated against Doe. Doe's caste had no influence on any management decisions I made, including decisions regarding his work assignments, training, reporting structure and performance. It would be illogical for me to have recruited and hired him, offered him a generous compensation, joined highest grade in my group, only to hinder his performance because of his caste. Except what happened to Sundar Iyer? After this case was widely debated, as you say, he says, I've had to leave Cisco and the San Francisco Bay Area for the majority of the past 2.5 years in order to distance myself from the complainant and the substantial media attention this case has garnered. So isn't this discrimination, Mr. Bharti, that first a man was called anti-Dalit, then he had to leave his workplace, he had to leave the area he lived in because of the kind of abuse he was getting? Isn't it discrimination against Sundar Iyer?
Well, I have all my sympathies for what has happened with Mr. Sundar Iyer, but let me two things that I would like to mention. I did not mention any caste of any specific person, either of Sundaraiya or the Do. Okay. So therefore, you have to understand the caste is a real issue that Hindu has to deal with. And we have to deal it collectively. We have to root out, we have to annihilate the caste discrimination. We have to completely abolish the discrimination based on caste. This is the matter of the Hindu, that they have to get it primarily.
Of those surveyed, half reported having faced discrimination on the basis of color, on ethnicity or national origin, as well as religion and gender. There was an exceedingly rare number of people, less than 2.5%, that reported facing caste discrimination. No discrimination is right, and we have to fight against it. But what we need to do is use existing laws. I'd also encourage people to look at the survey by the Pew Foundation. Now, the Pew did a mega survey, 35,000 people in India, and the caste realities that people are talking about here are very different from people on the ground who are reporting something very different. I'm not saying discrimination doesn't exist. Of course, discrimination exists in every society, and there are legal frameworks to address that, and people need to be educated on both their rights and responsibilities under the law, and the law needs to take its process. But here, when we talk about what happened to Sundar Iyer, it's not a matter of discrimination, it's a matter of abuse of power by the government. The government, it's very rare to file a case and on this, first of all, even name individual defendants. Usually what happens in these discrimination cases is it's just the company. But not only are these two individuals named, who are ethnic minorities in this country, you have to understand that people of Indian origin make up less than 1.5% of the American population. Not only are they named, not only is there a witch hunt in the media, because the media doesn't report on all of the facts of the case, but they file a press release on the day that they file the case. So they don't even wait to give these two individuals a fair day in court. They want the media and the public to have a trial by fire. And therefore, I would question, what is the government doing here in terms of putting its entire weight against two individuals who are minorities? That's the question.
Absolutely. And here's my case, Anirban Banerjee, that whether we are talking about what happened at Cisco or what happened in IIT Mumbai with Darshan Solanki, a boy commits suicide, his caste is taken as a handle to beat Hindus with and say, oh, he was forced to kill himself because he was a Dalit, and India is anti-Dalit. India is Brahmanical. Turns out that it was a dispute between him and a boy called Arman Iqbal Khatri. This caste discrimination is now being used as a political handle. That's my case. Anirban Banerjee.
No, I think the case here is that the reality of caste-based discrimination is actually getting recognized in the Western countries, whether it's Europe or the US or other countries. In the overseas, the Indian population, the percentage, the numbers, they are increasing. And a small section, I wouldn't say the entire section, of course not a small section, they are probably taking with them these medieval barbaric thoughts and mentalities of casteist mentality to the US or the European countries, etc., etc. Though the USA itself has seen a very long string of racial violence, racial discrimination,
again, sir, can we talk about some specifics, please? Or are we just going to have the same commentary coming from all three of you? It's a reality. The West knows it. People are debating it. It exists. We must not be in denial. Now I have come to the suicide of Darshan Solanki. It was for political purposes that a suicide was given a casteist angle. Why?
Now, what about the Rohit Vemula suicide?
Now why are you doing what about tree?
Or was
Again, then when I try and steer you towards facts, why do you do whataboutery?
It's not about whataboutery. If you bring up Darshan Solanki, why can't I bring up Rohit Vemula? Caste-based incidents, discriminated incidents, whether they are suicides
because,
or
sir,
murders.
You also know that Rohit Vemula has its own set of facts which run counter to your narrative. Can you please tell me why did left groups protest outside IIT Bombay, say that this was a caste murder? Based on what?
Whether casteism. No. Whether casteism, caste-based discrimination is a reality in the Indian subcontinent for centuries, that is the question. The answer is obviously yes. And when a part of our population, they are migrating to other countries, will they suddenly completely forget that all these existed?
Okay, so if
will they be free of all these?
And I hate because you dragged in whataboutery. Let me make an equally whataboutery, comparison and ask
There's
you.
No whataboutery.
Hold on a second. If Darshan Solanki was called a casteist murder or he was killed because he's a Dalit, now that there is another student whose name is Iqbal Khatri, who is said to have driven him to suicide, what do you make of that? What kind of a murder is that in your books, Anirban Banerjee? Is it a communal murder?
That has to be probed. That has to be probed. It might have been a communal murder. It may not have been a communal murder.
That you want to
Does
prove.
that take away
The caste you are absolutely certain about.
Our society has been riddled by casteism.
Okay, again one generalization.
I was asking what about
Okay, Rahul Ishwar, please respond. What about Rohit Vemula? Darshan Solanki, you remember? What about Rohit Vemula?
Just one line. Yes, I won't indulge in whataboutery, but the issue is whenever a Brahmin or Hindu is in the dock, it is always presumption of guilt that is guiding the entire narrative. It is as if there is a plug and play mechanism. See, let us not communalize or casteicize any kind of murder or death. It is unfortunate that the left always finds some kind of narrative to plug and play and to say that these things are bad. See, we have to rise above such sectarian things and say whether they belong to Hindu, Muslim, Christian or any other community or any other caste. It is our responsibility as humans to support them. But unfortunately, the narrative skewing by our left liberals is Hindus are always on the wrong. Brahmins are always villains. Brahmin-phobia is fashionable. Hinduphobia is progressive. Is the kind of narrative our left liberals are injecting. This is going to be detrimental to the society in the long run, and we have to support everyone irrespective of caste and religion. Is the right stand.
Okay, Vivek Srivastava, the fact that historically there has been bias can be accepted. But now when there is an effort to try and paper over those differences or get rid of those differences, and remember, social reform has been undertaken voluntarily by Indian society. Who are the people who are constantly, through these kind of cases, trying to fuel and further those divides, which we may have had historically, but you have to admit they have been reformed over time? Vivek Srivastava.
Yeah, see, you are right. Reforms have started. We had the Brahmo Samaj. We had other changes in the nation. We are reforming. Ambedkar was a very big thing to have happened to this nation. But then, I mean, he was so desperate and he was so sad that he left Hinduism and went over into Buddhism because he felt that there is no way out. You need to remember it. So even if I accept with you that reforms are happening, we need to constantly keep on working upon it. Khap panchayats in Haryana and Paschimi Uttar Pradesh are still a part of the same society. Intercaste marriages are still not welcome. These are the things. So they have not changed. I mean, the Yogi government is willing to make 50 universities कह रहे हैं साहब संस्कृत पढ़ाएंगे, physics, chemistry, maths की जरूरत नहीं है. BJP and the RSS are Brahmanical by nature. We are not against Brahmin caste.
You are making generic statements.
We are against Brahmanwad. No, I'm not generic. Brahmanwad.
What is Brahmanwad, sir?
Caste
What is Brahmanwad?
Brahmanical supremacy and Hindu supremacy that the BJP wants is the problem.
Modi ji a Brahmanwadi?
And BJP wants to remove reservation, and that is why this narrative is being spread that there is no caste problem in the country.
Okay. People are against Brahmanwad, Suhag Shukla, and again, like every other argument, it is a reality.
Yes.
It is in India and it has now filtered abroad.
Padmaja, may I come in?
Yes, Mr. Bharti, I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Go on, Suhag Shukla.
Look, I said all of this, I mean, none of these conversations are rooted in any sort of facts. They're making generalizations about people, demonizing entire communities. And so you are engaging in the very practice that you are condemning. And if you really want to rise above any sort of casteism, stop generalizing anyone on the basis of their background. Until you can do that, regardless of where you might see them in some perceived hierarchy that's in your head or that you have experienced in your local village, we're not going to get past this. I mean, there have been so many broad sweeping claims made about Brahmin communities or upper caste communities. Each one of these communities is diverse. Each one of them have their own socioeconomic challenges, as do all the scheduled caste communities or the other backward classes communities. They are not all the same. And until we start recognizing the individual challenges that each community faces without mapping on something that actually doesn't even have a definition, while caste is an administrative category in India, what's the checklist that everyone gets in order to get one of those designations? We're working on terminology that does not have agreed upon meaning, and therefore we will never get to the root causes of discrimination or prejudice in society and be able to help those that need help.
All right. Final word, Mr. Ashok Bharti.
I just wanted to say that the most of the intellectuals, intelligentsia living in India and abroad of the Hindus have not listened to the advice that Dr. Ambedkar has said long ago, that the caste is a real issue in India, and if Indians go abroad, caste will become an international problem. So I suppose that what Dr. Ambedkar has predicted long ago in 1930s, it has become a reality.
But sir, that is not borne out neither by any cases nor by any of the statistics. Yes, Dr. Ambedkar did make the prediction. Yes, there are still problems that exist in India. But this filtering out or the spread of so-called casteism, where are these assertions coming from? At least in the present case, it hasn't been borne out. However, if these problems do exist, let the current laws address them. Let it not be used for a witch hunt. Thanks very much, all gentlemen. Suhag Shukla for joining me.